Hello, veterinary friends. Welcome to the podcast. Today, I have a wonderful guest for you. Her name is Dr. Wendy O'Connor, and she's a Stanford-trained positive psychologist and success coach for female entrepreneurs. She helps women design their most meaningful, intentional, and fulfilling lives and businesses. And I'm super excited to have her here today and teach me some things. Welcome to the podcast, Wendy.
Thank you so much for having me, Julie.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to have you here. I love psychology. I love positive psychology and all the things. So I think I'm going to have a really good time talking with you today.
For sure.
Yeah. So the first question I always ask everyone is to tell me their story. And so you can start wherever you want and just tell me how you got to where you are.
Yeah. So my story begins in seventh grade. In seventh grade, it was our first introduction to psychology classes. And there's one class where our teacher was sharing with us opportunities that you have in a career in psychology. So if you were to enjoy these classes, learning about psychology, what would you do with your life and your career? And she shared these options. And one option was to be a clinical psychologist. And when she described what a clinical psychologist did, my ears perked up because I thought, wait a second, this is what I already do for my friends. Like I can be paid to listen and to support and to help people feel better. I was like, this is done. It felt like this moment of check, I found out exactly what I want to do. And funny enough and strangely enough, that never changed. It just never unhooked from feeling very true for me. So I pursued a degree in psychology. I got my doctorate in clinical psychology, which was many, many years ago now. And then I went into private practice, which was the dream. The dream for me was private practice. It was like, I just want to, when I was at Stanford, we had a class where this is such a funny story. And I love sharing this one because it's just an important reminder of how critical it is for you to stay true to who you are on this journey.
Yes.
But we were in this classroom and the professor had asked us to go around a circle and to share what we wanted to do with our doctorate. Like what was the impact we wanted to make on the world with our degree now that we're graduating?
That's a good
And
question, right?
it was a great question.
Yeah.
But the funny part about that question was my immediate reaction was, well, do I tell them the truth? Because it's not going to impress my Stanford cohort here. People were
Right.
like, I'm going to cure depression forever and I'm going to open a hospital and I'm going to do all these things.
Yeah.
It got to me and I was like, you know what? I'm going to just say the truth, which was exactly this. I want to have a small private practice and make jam and babies.
Oh, I
That was like,
love that. That's hilarious.
and it was this truth that I was just like, I don't care. I don't care. They're going to think what they think. Like, this is just the truth of it. You're not going to be excited about my answer, probably, but it's my truth. So I
Right.
went out and did that. I created a private practice. Then I opened a second one because it was doing so well and it was so fulfilling at the time. And I made jam, which it turns out I don't really love making jam. I thought I would. Not
It
my thing.
sounded good at the time, right?
It sounded fun, right? It just sounded like a fun, simple thing to for fulfillment. And it turns out making jam's not my jam. So I stopped that, but I had then had three babies. So this is where my life took a bit of a turn, as you would not be surprised to hear. But I had these two thriving practices, helping people primarily with anxiety and depression, stress management, and I had three girls within 15 months.
Wow.
So this is where life took a bit of a pivot.
Yeah, that's a lot of kids all at once.
A lot of kids all at once. So we had our first daughter, and then 6 months later, I was pregnant with twins. In 15 months, I had three kids in diapers under two. So
Yeah.
it was just a different reality than anything I'd ever experienced before. And I found myself feeling very differently about my life and my career. There was this shift that just like a wave kind of washes over you. That's how it felt. It kind of felt like all of a sudden, me going to my practice every day wasn't feeling the same. It wasn't feeling exciting. It wasn't feeling fulfilling. I started to feel like I was languishing. I was really going through the motions, checking the boxes. And I didn't want to do that. That wasn't why I was in this profession. It wasn't why I was wanting to make impact and serve. And I started to say to my husband at the time, like, something's got to change. This can't be it. Like, this looks like success on the outside because we have this beautiful family and I have two amazing practices and they're doing really well and I'm making an impact and helping people, but I'm not feeling it inside. Internally, it felt like a very different reality. And that's when I started to say, okay, I need to change things up. And this is where people get a little stuck because they're like, what do I do? What do I do?
Right, right. That's what most people come to me for life coaching because they're like, I'm not sure what to do next. And how do I get what I want? You
That's
know?
exactly it. And what do I want? What do I
Right,
actually
right.
want? I know
Yeah,
what I
sometimes you
don't
don't
want.
know.
That's
Exactly.
right. And so you
Yeah,
know what you, or at least for me, I knew what I didn't want. This,
right,
more of this isn't it. More of this
right.
isn't it. My energy is really going out so much more than it's coming back to me. I'm not having the energy I want to for my babies. The lifestyle isn't what I would want as a mom of three. I wanted more flexibility and freedom. I wanted more autonomy. I also wanted more authenticity. So something I started to feel was that being in the clinical space and kind of being in the box of a clinical psychologist and the way that we do that and what that looks like and the role you play in someone's life started to feel a little restrictive for me. I was
Hmm.
craving more creativity and self-expression, and one of my signature strengths is humor, and I wanted to bring more laughter into my days in my career, and I wanted the vibe to be different, right? Like the success
Yeah.
looked good or felt good or that's fine, but it wasn't like my way anymore.
Right, right. Yeah, that's fascinating because a lot of people think about entrepreneurship, but they don't think of it in that way, that it's their own when you become an entrepreneur, right?
That's right. And this
Yeah.
is why I am here today with you, is because it was when I realized that the only thing truly holding me back from making a shift that was going to make me happier was my own permission to do it, to figure it out, to go for it, to do it messy, to not know all the pieces yet. And
Hmm.
that's where I went. I said, okay. And the way that I funneled this down was to ask myself, what don't I like about my current lifestyle? What do I not love about my current role as in service? What do I not love about this picture? And I just started there because that was the most familiar piece to me. I knew what I was complaining about, but I
Right,
didn't
right.
know what I wanted yet.
Yeah,
So I'm like,
exactly. Well, and that's true, right? You have to know what you don't want first. And then it sometimes even takes help to open up your mind to what you really do want because your brain is making you afraid because you're thinking it's impossible, right?
you're thinking you just don't even know what is possible. It's just this unknown entity of this like abyss somewhere beyond the wall.
Right,
And
right.
so just this simple gift I gave myself of permission, just permission to dream, permission to be creative, permission to design it exactly how I wanted to, meaning not just the logistics of how many days do I want to work a week or what are my hours or how long are my sessions going to be, but it was really more so what would light me up? What if I were to get out of bed every morning excited to get to work? What would
What
that
would that
mean?
look like?
Yeah,
Yeah,
what would that look
yeah,
like for me now? It's different. So
right.
what I realized was that I spent a very good season of my career helping people get from moderate to severe anxiety and depression to a place of functionality and a place of getting through the days and holding jobs and functioning well.
Hmm.
But what I really felt pulled to do was the inner work on me and the outer work with others was getting from a place of surviving now to a place of actually thriving.
Right.
I saw in myself what I wanted to help others with, which was no, 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 this isn't it. Checking the boxes, showing up to your work, leaving exhausted, doing the same thing tomorrow, feeling like this shouldn't be the way it is, but you keep doing it the way it is. It's not the way. And
Right.
when I said to that to myself and was like, okay, I get to decide like soup to nuts exactly what my next chapter looks like, that's when it got fun. It didn't
Yeah.
feel intimidating or overwhelming to me. It just felt fun because I was in the dreaming state of, well, let's imagine anything's possible. So if anything's possible,
Then what?
then what? Then like what
Yeah.
could that look like if it were to work? And
Right.
that's where we started to play. So
Yeah.
now I'm in this position where I had left my clinical practices. I had shut down those offices. This was also over like right around COVID. I had changed to everything to virtual. I still
Yeah.
had patients that I was working with, but I started to ramp up my coaching practice. And what I really wanted to focus on as a coach now was how to help women feel empowered to thrive. That was it. It was like,
Right.
we are going to get you from surviving your life to actually freaking loving your life. That was
Right.
my first goal. And I was like, oh, this sounds so fun. Enter
Yeah.
positive psychology, the science of
Right.
happiness. And like,
Yes.
oh, that became like the vehicle to help women get from surviving to thriving, was the research that we know and what actually makes us happy. So I just integrated that into my coaching world. And I was off to the races, not knowing exactly what I wanted just yet in terms of all the logistical pieces. But I just gave myself permission to play and experience it and experiment and figure it out. Here we are.
Yeah, that's awesome. So explain to me, or us, I should say, to me and the people listening, about positive psychology and happiness, the study of happiness. And I know some of it because I've read some books on it and I've studied it myself, but explain that to those of us that don't quite understand what that means.
Yeah, to put it simply, positive psychology is the science of happiness. It's really, what do we know now that's proven to be evidence of what makes us happy or what allows us to flourish. And so we know that there's certain things that really contribute to our overall well-being and our happiness. And there's models, like, so for example, one of the models I'll talk to my clients a lot about is the PERMA model. The PERMA model in positive psychology is the model of flourishing. So if you wanted to wake up today, tomorrow, and say, I want to live the most flourishing life I can, like the fullest, most like happiest life that I can, here are the things that you would do. And the PERMA model will lead you through exactly what to do. So they are, I do the six component model. So there's PERMA, and then I add the V because the V was in there for a while and I love the V. But it's an easy model, and it's definitely a place to start if you're wondering, like, how do I get to my next level of fulfillment or flourishing? Like, this is the easy part. It's like P is for positive emotions, so we want to feel more positive emotions much of the time if we can, and there's things you can do to have that experience more.
Mm-hmm.
E is engagement. Engagement means like that flow state, like what gets you into a state where you lose track of time, you love doing what you're doing just for the sake of doing it. When do you feel engaged in your life? It could be personally and or professionally, and bumping that number up is going to do you well. R is relationships, so positive relationships in your life. How is that going? M stands for meaning. So the more that life feels meaningful, and that purpose piece, the more that you're going to feel happy and fulfilled.
Right.
A is accomplishment. And then V is vitality, like feeling alive and well in mind and body. So when we think about the science of happiness, we think about what does the research show us? And then we have this perfect little packaged model that we get to follow. That's like, okay, if I'm not feeling thrilled with life right now, maybe I start to tinker a little bit with any of these
Here's
categories.
how I can do it, and not
Here's how I can do
necessarily
it.
in a specific order.
Anything, start
Yeah.
anywhere, right? So I may have shared the components of the PERMA model, and your listeners may be like, ooh, that's the one for me that I don't have. Ooh,
Right.
that's the one for me. So you will naturally feel a reaction to these several different categories and have this pull to realize, oh, that's the one I probably want to work on to feel better in my life.
Yeah. And I think part of the thing that I like that you said is work on. I think we often don't realize that happiness isn't just it just isn't there for some people and not there for others. Like the circumstances don't matter. It's how you look at those circumstances and how you work with the tools that you have and develop the tools that you have to feel better. And, that concept of putting in the work is, I think, something that we don't learn as children. Like we kind of teach our kids that they should just be happy all the time, and we want them to be happy all the time. Um, and I think sometimes that teaches us the wrong way to look at life, maybe. Like, am I
Mm.
saying that? Is that making sense?
It is. I think that there is a very strong pull for people to experience as much instant gratification as possible. And I think that in times of things like social media and our phones, that we're instantly gratified every time we open a phone and see a text or an email or a social media update or something, like we are
You get that little
constantly.
dopamine or that
That's
little hit.
right.
Yeah.
We're so into like, what's the next hit? What's the next hit? Because we think that that's what's actually going to make us feel happy in our
Happy.
lives.
Right.
But it's not actually going to be from those little dopamine hits. It's actually not going to be when you wake up tomorrow and go, oh, my life is the best. I checked social media 10 times today. It's,
Or
it's going to,
or someone said something nice about me on the internet, like
that's right.
that's what we're all looking for, right? Like a good thing to happen or something.
That's right. But what really makes us happy is, and this is the work I do now with entrepreneurs, is designing our life. Like you are the architect of your life, you're the designer of your life, you're the CEO of your life. And for entrepreneurs, of course, they are of their businesses as well. So we're not designing those pieces, our personal and professional pieces, to align with who we are and how we want to feel every day and how we want to live a meaningful life. If we're not aligning our decisions with that, we end up just going off course over and over again. And then this is what happens for a lot of the women in my world. You wake up one day and you're like, this isn't it, right? Like,
How
this
did
is
I end up here?
like, what am I doing? This is
Right.
not making me happy. Like, why did I think this was the way? So many people are end up just following these prescribed paths, but they're not their path. It's like society's path, the conditioned path, someone else's path. But we don't focus on, well, what is my path? That's what you really want to focus on.
Yeah. So how do you do that? Let's just talk about somebody that is feeling really lost, whether it's in their career or in their life in general, and they feel like they're out of alignment with all these things. What would you recommend that they do as kind of like a first step? Like I mean, obviously getting help. I always love to say that. Get a coach, get a therapist, get something going for yourself for help, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like when we hire somebody who has the wisdom, who has the expertise, who has that experience to help you get to where you want to go faster, even if where you want to go is to figure out where you want to go faster, like that's what you do.
Right.
You hire the coach. It goes much faster when you have that person that can see beyond your limiting beliefs, that could see
Right.
beyond your fears, that can see beyond the uncertainty that you experience because you haven't figured it all out yet. When you have someone that can see beyond that, that
Mhm.
is so powerful. And that's what I always say, like that will collapse time for you. You'll get to where you want to go much faster. So yes, 100%. But before that, even the way that I teach this and my beliefs around it are, you're not lost. First of all, we can feel lost, but we're not lost. You don't need to be found. What happens is we get very disconnected from ourselves. We go through the motions, we check the boxes, we follow the prescribed path. We're trying to be good people, trying to do the right thing. Maybe we're working hard, doing all the things, and we don't feel connected to ourselves. And we call that stuck or we call that lost. But you're not lost. It's just what needs to happen next is a reconnection. And the way that I teach this is there are three pieces that make the biggest difference in designing your path forward. The first is really what the best parts of you and your personality are. So, knowing what your strengths are is actually significantly impactful with how happy and fulfilled and successful you will be. When you know what's naturally you, who you really are, and you not only allow that, but you embrace it and highlight it in your decisions and in your choices moving forward with your next season of life, it becomes automatically an extension of who you are. You feel authentically aligned because
Right.
you focused on the best parts of you. And so the best parts of us make us happier humans.
Yeah. So that's like self-awareness and learning about yourself.
It's yes, and it's but specifically with strengths. So I take my clients through an assessment. They learn exactly what their top strengths are. We take those strengths, we start to map them into life, and where they're not being mapped into life, we start to close those gaps. Where are we living this way? Where are we not living this way? This is a great way to start feeling like you can actually take action moving forward and make very small but impactful changes in your life. The second piece of the trio is values, really knowing more self awareness, but the connection to what matters most to you is going to make it much, much easier to make aligned decisions. So a lot of people will say, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do next. I don't know how to decide. Connect with what matters to you. Do a values assessment, pop out your top 5 values. These are the ones that matter the most to you, your core values. Use those. would this decision to stay in my career or to change my career, does that highlight any or all of these values? So knowing what your values are, what matters most to you, and would they be reflected in your next decision? That helps us make decisions that are aligned so much easier. So those two pieces are like huge pieces in my world. And the third piece is connecting to desires. So allowing yourself to dream. And this is something that a lot of women have almost turned off, like a switch, like they've turned off the permission to dream because life is so full and busy and committed and overscheduled and all of those things that it feels like this luxury that you're going to like be sitting at a spa thinking about what I dream of and what
Yeah.
I
And
desire.
our life is so full of obligations that we kind of forget what makes us tick and what's fun and what's exciting to us.
Yeah, exactly
Yeah.
right. So desires is a really big piece of it. And that can be a journey on its own because, like I said, a lot of people have really turned down the volume on even letting themselves connect with their dreams and desires. They just show up and survive, wonder why it's not working and they're not happy, but then keep doing the same thing. Desires
Hmm.
is an important piece. So if you're looking for that, like, what's the first thing I should do? Do a strengths assessment, do a values assessment, let yourself dream, shut off the world for 10 minutes, let yourself just write some crazy ideas in your phone, in the notes of your phone, of like, oh, if I could do anything, I want to be, a dolphin trainer, like whatever it is.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like, whatever that is that excites you for the moment. Don't worry about how practical it is. We're not talking about strategy yet. We're just talking about connecting to who you are and what you want. That's what you do first.
Yeah. It's almost like going back to being a child where anything is possible. Like kids, they think they can do anything at any time, right? And do it
That's right.
well.
That's
And
right.
then life kind of beats that out of us.
It absolutely can. That's why it's so important to protect this. It's so important to protect this little spark and like what I like to call like the magic of it. I mean, we are languishing and checking boxes, we've lost the magic. When we're living in uncertainty and we're just scared that we don't have it figured out, and so we focus on what could go wrong more than what can go right, we rob ourselves of being able to create success. It's like when we get ourselves into these places of hustle, 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 and then we're burnt out. Now we've robbed ourselves of creating fulfillment and alignment because we have no creativity left. We have no energy left. Our capacity is significantly reduced. Like when we just let life happen to us and we just kind of end up being these, I feel like the visual in my
Yep.
mind is like,
Ride along.
yeah, like glass on the beach, we just keep getting washed up and washed up and washed up. When we don't protect our spark or our magic, when we don't protect our unique authenticity of who we are, we really lose sight of what it takes to be happy and successful.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about, from your perspective, we have a big issue in vet med, and this is a human issue, I think. I don't think it's just veterinarians, but because veterinarians are such driven, perfectionistic type people, we have a lot of imposter syndrome. And that seems to fuel a lot of this negativity that we feel, the stress, the anxiety, and so we have a tendency to blame it on the job rather than that we just haven't learned how to think differently or feel differently about things. So, what is your take on imposter syndrome? I know that's kind of a label, but what do you think starts that, and how do we start to overcome that? Is it different? Is it the same?
Yeah, that's a great question. Imposter syndrome comes up for most of us. And it usually comes up for us when we're doing something that's a little bit out of our comfort zone. We're doing something new or newer, or we're doing something a new way. And all of a sudden, our brain, of course, because it's designed and wired to protect us, it's not designed and wired to support our endeavors and the risks we
Dreams.
want to take, our dreams. That's right. It's going to think of reasons to hold us back. And one of the things that comes up the most for people is like, they're going to find me out. They're going to know I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm not going to answer this right, or I don't like it's this unfamiliar and fear-based thinking around being found out or being caught and feeling dumb. And my take on it honestly is it's just normal. It's just, of course, you feel nervous about coming across a certain way or being found out because you actually haven't learned the skills yet to feel confident and to have the mastery in this area. So if you were to take me right now and you were to put me on a stage in front of 6,000 people, well, first I'd run off. First, I'd run off the
You wouldn't
stage.
be able to do it, huh?
I'd probably be crying. I don't know. Maybe that's just the story in my head. Maybe I would kick the speech's butt. I don't know. But my first thought would be, get me out of here. All these eyes staring at me. There's no way I have something of value to share with these people. There's no way. And so my brain would start to freak out. But it's freaking out because this is a completely foreign world that I've just been kind of plopped down into with, and I have as a high achiever, and as your listeners have as high achievers, high expectations of how this should go and how I want
Right.
to feel after. I want to feel proud. I want to feel accomplished. I don't want to feel like I'm just put in the sea to learn how to swim with like sharks all around me.
Right.
So it's very normal. And I think the less focus that we give and energy we give to imposter syndrome, and we just get to focus on like, if you want to get rid of imposter syndrome, go learn the thing that you're afraid of. Like, go fill in the gaps. That's how I see it. Go fill in the gaps. Why are you afraid of being found out or not knowing all the things? Well, because I don't know all the things. Okay, so go learn some more things. That's how we actually start to feel better. So if we don't look at imposter syndrome as a reason to stop or a reason to say no or a reason to quit or a reason to hold ourselves back, and we look at it as an opportunity to fill in the gaps, well, now we're suddenly very empowered and we're like, oh yeah, imposter syndrome is just this story in my head, this fear in my mind. But if I actually ask myself, why am I feeling this fear? And I go out there and I go close the gaps on that fear, well, now I've closed a hole and I get to show up feeling more confident and I get to master something new. And then I'm not going to feel that way anymore.
Well, yeah, and sometimes just acting anyway, even if you're feeling impostery, will help you learn. Like we feel imposter syndrome all the time when we walk into an exam room. If it's something we don't know, like if there's a disease and we're like, I have no idea what's wrong with this dog, then that's when imposter syndrome kicks in. And so then we have the skills to do the testing and, learn what's wrong with the dog, just like you said. But unless we put ourselves in that situation of feeling that imposter syndrome and acting anyway, we're not going to get to the point where we can build the confidence, and if we let it defeat us.
Right. Because now you have this experience where you don't know. So you find out and then you figure it out and you put that in your memory bank. And now you have an additional piece of information as an expert in the field that can now see that in the next dog and
Yeah.
call it and know it and be like, oh, okay, good. But the other piece of this, and this is a really important piece of this, and having gone through the ranks of getting a doctorate and your listeners going through the ranks of getting their degrees in this as well, is like that reminder of, you're not going to know everything about everything. No one knows everything about everything. No
Ever.
one knows.
Ever.
So it
Right.
doesn't matter how many textbooks you've studied. It doesn't matter how many diseases you did learn, because there's some you can't pin yet, and that's normal. So as soon as you start to just look at yourself as a human and not this computer that is programmed the right way, it's like then you get to have a little grace and accept that you're learning as you move through this career. You will not know in year one what you know in year 10. And there's only one way to know what you would know in year 10. It's to get to year 10. It's to have 10
It's to
years of
stick with it.
experience.
Right. Yeah.
That's the only way that you're actually going to keep building and filling in gaps and filling in gaps and filling in gaps. But you also need to give yourself that permission to be human and give yourself the grace to just accept the truth. You will not know everything about everything. And if someone
Right.
doesn't like that, that's okay. This is just human. You're not a computer.
I say that to my clients all the time because, especially some of the younger ones, they have a hard time saying, I don't know, to a client because it feels like they should know. Like they have this story that I should know because I went to vet school and I learned all these things. And if this client asks me a question I don't know, then it really upsets them. It's very defeating. And I said, that's one thing I think that we should teach everyone, probably from the time you're a child, but especially in veterinary school and probably in psychology courses, is that we're supposed to not know, and we need to be able to say it with confidence. If I go into a room and I tell a client, you know what, I don't know what's going on. And if I say it with confidence, but here's what I do know, here's the tests we need to run. Here's the specialist we need to call. Here's, I know some things that I can share with you, but saying I don't know with confidence, it's so, so difficult. And I think so important for us to learn how to say in
Mm.
order to be successful, or at least feel good about what we're doing, feel happy in our jobs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting because I think on the one hand, I think, well, do we have to say I don't know? Are there other ways to be able to express the same message, but in a way that doesn't make us feel so uncomfortable? Like we still need to do further testing. We're going to figure this out.
Right,
I'm in
right,
this with you. I'm so curious. I really want to know, get to the bottom of this. We're going to do this together. Here's what's next. Is
right.
there a way to say, let's keep going because we're going to get this answered without saying I don't know,
I don't know.
as if
Yeah.
it means I should show up to this conversation with my tail between my legs. Like it's just
Yeah, I think it's an attitude, right? Like I don't feel bad saying I don't know if if it's the truth. What do you think that is, Doc? I don't want to BS them. I
no,
want to
that's
say,
right.
I don't know. It looks like a cyst, but it could be a tumor, like then I can go on. But to just be confident by saying right at this moment, I don't know, and that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you want to use different language to say that, I think it's fine. But I think
Mm-hmm.
just realizing that you're not an imposter, you're not a bad veterinarian, you're not a bad person, you're not stupid, because that's what imposter syndrome tells us, right? We don't know, we're stupid, we're not good enough. Um,
Right.
I'm not smart enough. All the other vets are smarter than I am. I mean, my brain has told me that 100 times. And even doing the podcast, oh, there's people that do podcasts better and I don't ask the right questions. Like we all have that. And we just have to get to the point where we understand that as a human, our brain's going to tell us that, but we don't have to believe it.
That's right. So that's the other piece of this. So there's one option, which is use the language that works for you and in integrity and
Right.
honest. Use
Right.
language that
Yeah.
works.
Don't try to BS someone.
No, and you don't have to say words that feel very triggering to you until you change your relationship with those words. But that's
True.
the other piece of this. So when somebody has an imposter syndrome, and then as you were saying, then it's very defeating. It's like, well, the defeating part is the story that you have about imposter syndrome popping up. The reason it feels defeating is because you have a story that imposter syndrome thoughts or fears are true and that they mean something about you. That's pretty substantial. But
Right.
when you change your relationship with imposter thoughts, when you change your relationship with words, the story shifts. And when the story changes, you don't feel bad about who you are anymore. You just share words because they're true and you're not attached to those words. They don't mean anything about you. The only reason I don't know is going to feel defeating is if you let it have a story that has power over you.
Right.
That's the only reason. Otherwise, they're just words. They're meaningless. They don't have to have a story attached. But when they do, that's when we get ourselves into a place of feeling like there's a negative spiral of comparison or not good enoughness.
Right, right. And then you go down that rabbit hole of I'm not the best and therefore not worthy of doing this job or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me, you kind of started with the strengths, the values, and the dreams and the desires. Tell me, if someone's coming to you as an entrepreneur or maybe a wannabe entrepreneur, and we kind of start there, what is kind of your next step to get that person either to pursue those dreams or to enjoy their life or be happy right where they are? Because I think both things are possible.
So if somebody's coming to me, I believe it's because they want to feel better about their life experience. So I'm not going to get in the boat where they are settling for less than what they desire. Okay, so this is my philosophy. This is where I feel very strongly. I believe 100% that you can be grateful as all heck and desire more, desire different, want something else. And this is another place that we get, like, I imagine this is such a
We
road
get
trip.
shamed, right?
We get shamed. And I felt this way when I switched careers. When I shifted from clinical psych into a coaching space, a lot of the feedback I got was, how could you do that? It's going so well. You're doing so great. Like, what are you doing? Like, this
Why
is,
would you do that?
why would you do that? Why would
Yeah.
you risk it? Why would you start over? And my response just felt so like matter of fact. It was like, because I wasn't happy. It was so simple. What do you mean? I can be grateful for the amazing experiences I had in the clinical world. I can be grateful for the success it created in the ways that it did. I can be so grateful that lives were changed. I'm so grateful that I have all that I have. And it's not a but.
And want more,
And
right?
I want something different and I want to be happier and I want this to look and feel different than it does today. I want an alternative. That's why.
Right.
So people's reactions, as you know, come from their limitations in their mind and their stories and their experience and the way they live their life. They only can really see where they've gone and see where they've created a life. They can't really see as much as well like beyond that. So when you're somebody as an entrepreneur or as a high achiever that's going to get out there and do amazing things and you're going to break a few rules along the way of how it should be done, people have reactions. And so this next step, when somebody is a wannabe or ready to make a change or wants to make a change, the next step is really about giving yourself permission to have an and life. I'm grateful for all that I have and how far I've come. I'm grateful for this amazing life. For many, if not most people, it's not that life is so horrible that we're running from pain constantly. Actually, what I see more often is people are like, it's really not that bad. I shouldn't be complaining. I should be more grateful. And I'm like, stop right there. Let's be grateful and give yourself permission to want something different. You can have both. So that's where we start to dream. If I could be grateful and, ooh, now what does that look like? Because now
Right.
that I've opened up a whole world where that door was locked because I should be grateful and I should be happy with what I have and I should just shut up and sit down and just take my paycheck and serve my patients and be done. It's like, no. That is not the vibe. This is one life. We've got this one life. Let's freaking live it. Let's seize it. Let's savor it. Let's get out there. Let's do it by design. Don't let yourself settle because people or society is making you feel a certain type of way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's so important because my husband said this to me before. It's a joke with him, is he'll say, well, you're never satisfied. Like you've got this, you've done this, you do this, and then it's like you're on to the next thing and you're on to the next thing. And sometimes I would feel shame about that. It'd be like, well, yeah, maybe I am not grateful. Maybe I am not looking at what I have and I'm always wanting the next big thing. And I think there's a balance there, right? Because if you're just chasing the things to chase the things because you're having insecurity or you're having you're trying to overcome that imposter syndrome, there's a difference. Then you just have dreams. And it's like, well, yeah, but I want to do that too. My mom laughs because every time someone describes their job, I'm like, oh, that sounds fun. I say that all the time. Somebody will say, well, I'm a garbage man. I'm like, yeah, I'd like to try that sometime. Like that's kind of how I respond a lot of times because I think everything's interesting. I have that kind of personality. Like that's interesting. That's interesting. But I think just getting over that that's a bad thing and
Well,
that
you bring up
that's
such a good point. That's
not
such an
right.
important point, right? Because there is balance here. So if you are just chasing happiness, chasing success, and so you're just like, that's not a good enough, not good enough, not good enough. That's a very different energy than building something you love from the ground up in the most aligned, fulfilling way. And you're like, ooh, what's next? Ooh, this is so fun. Ooh, what could be the next level? Ooh, what could be my next goal, or what could be my next milestone, or what could be this next fun creative way to do this work or to express myself or to whatever it is. There's two very different vibes.
Right, because the first one where you're just achieving all the time, you're kind of running from your fear of insignificance or your fear of lack of meaning or whatever. Like you're just constantly trying to achieve to prove something to your scared brain.
Yes,
But
or
if
you're
you're
trying to find
dreaming, it's
something.
different. Yeah, you're running away or you're running towards, or I don't
Yes,
know exactly the words to use, but there's a difference, right?
there's a huge difference. And so, yes, you're either running away because you're just trying to prove and trying to legitimize yourself, or you're trying to catch meaning, you're trying to chase purpose, you're trying to chase happiness. So you're still thinking of, oh, I need to do the next thing to get happy. That's going to make me happy. That's going to make me success. That's going to make me this. And so it's not only trying to get away from feeling not good enough, but it's also this place of wanting for more, but not knowing the proper way to get there. So it's like, I always use this example in a road trip, but let's imagine I'm in Rhode Island. So let's imagine we're driving up to Vermont. And that's the goal, the destination's to get to Vermont. But I just decide I'm going to like just blindly try to get to Vermont. So I'm going to take
Just
6,000
drive.
twists and turns and detours to get to where I want to go. We don't really want to do life that way. Now, life can be fun to experiment and explore, and that's absolutely true. But when we're trying to like chase something by going 1,000 different directions to feel a way that we don't yet feel, we're trying to capture something we don't have. It's very different energy than building from the start something that makes you very happy and then creating success from a place of fulfillment. You take far fewer detours. It's not about you not feeling worthy anymore. It's about you getting to expand something that's already good, going from good to amazing, or going from great to mind blowing. Like that's what you get to do when you are building this properly.
Yeah. And realizing that there's no right way to get there. I had a lot of thoughts when I first started wanting to become a life coach and pulling away from clinical practice some. And, because I love what I do. But I had a lot of those thoughts that, well, this isn't the right thing to do. Like, why would you do kind of like you did? It's like what people say. But then being like, okay, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter when you started to want to do this. Like I wouldn't have imagined 20 years ago that I'd be doing this. Like I didn't even really know what podcasts were. My kids would say, Mom, listen to this, listen to that. And I'd be like, okay, I didn't know. But as I started to get interested and started to do it, I'm like, you start to feel that doubt, but it's like, but how fun would it be if I did it? What could I do? Who could I help? Who could I impact? And wouldn't it be fun? Like I love doing these podcasts because I get to meet people like you and learn things from people like you. So I think there's a different way to get there for everyone, and it's all okay.
In fact, it's the way. It's the most important thing to remember. And I preach this all the time. It's meant to be your way. It's meant to be your way. So there's 1,000 ways to create success, but first you need to define success for you. So success for me may look very different than success looks for you. And that needs to be embraced and honored and truly allowed to make its way into every decision that you make. It can't be these kind of constant splintering away from who you really are and what you want, because there are 1,000 ways to succeed. So you get to choose your way. What's your way going to be?
Right.
And I get very fired up about it. And I feel myself right now, like just trying to like temper yourself, because I get so fired up
No,
about
it's
this.
okay. You can be, I always joke that I'm all over the place because that's
Yeah.
how my brain works. I'm like, ooh, that, I kind of jump from one thing to the other. So you can get as wild as you want.
I just get so into this concept of like I just sometimes want to be like, wake up, wake up. Like this gets to be your way. So stop waking up every day and doing the same things the same way and then feeling unfulfilled every night. Like it doesn't have to be that way. And I know that there will be listeners that are like, okay, she makes it so simple, right? And it's like I'm not taking into consideration all the
Because
variables of
it's not simple, right? Like
it's
it
not.
isn't simple. But it's a decision. I don't want this anymore. So what am I going to do about it?
It's a series of decisions over and over and over again to commit to yourself over and over and over again.
Right.
That's what it is. It's
Yeah.
just, it's not even sexy. It's like people will think the entrepreneurial world or the doctor world or the success world is like this fancy, flashy, sexy thing. And it's like at the end of the day, really to have what you want and what makes you very fulfilled is actually simple in theory, maybe not in practice. It doesn't feel as easy, but it
Right.
comes down to just a couple things. And when you
Right.
have those couple of things nailed, you won't go wrong. You won't take the detours that take you back to start. You will pivot, you'll recalibrate, you'll get back on the highway. But you just need to know how to show up in these couple of ways in your life. And then once you have those nailed, you're like off and running
Yeah. And then you can continue to figure it out, right?
over and over again. Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So what else am I not asking you that I should be asking you?
You should be asking me what success by design looks like. This is what
Okay.
I'm saying.
All right. Tell
When
me
you were
what success by design looks like.
Ooh, good question. I love this one. Success by design looks like number one, you give yourself permission to dream again. You give yourself permission to make the rules, to change the game, to pivot, to make a new decision. Our decisions are not meant to be life sentences. We are allowed to course correct and to change our mind as many times in our lives as we want to. That's number one. Number two, to live a life where success is by design is to, as much as humanly possible, stay connected to who you are. Know your strengths and values. Mine are on this really nice necklace here.
Oh, I love that. Do you actually wear that around? That's
No,
awesome.
I really should wear this out. I could just have this would be a lot of fun talking points on
I kind of have the same things. Like I have little like post-its and like hanging on my microphone and little like sayings that I want to remember, like to remind my brain that this is who I am and where I'm going.
That's right. And it
Is
takes
that what's on
repetition.
your card?
Yeah, so on the front of my card are my 5 signature strengths, and
I
on the
love
back of
that.
my card are my 5 core values. So this
Beautiful.
I don't wear it around the house much or town, but this sits on my desk and it's that reminder that whenever I'm going to make another decision in my world, professionally, personally, I just look at this little reminder of, okay, this is who I am. And this is what I want my life to be about. And then this is what I value, meaning this is what matters most to me. And so my decisions really need to reflect that. They need to keep reflecting these things because this is who I am. And so for me to be successful in my way, I need to stay true to this path. This is the path on this little card.
That's your authentic self.
Yes, and I call this my North Star. So my values, my strengths, and my desires are my North Star. That's my compass. This is what I teach my clients to do.
This is
So,
so ironic that you're saying this because I just gave a leadership talk last weekend and two of the big points were values and strengths. And it was you make decisions from your values and you lead with your strengths. And so that's what you need to develop is your
yes,
strengths. Yeah.
right. And just knowing what those are, just
Yeah.
knowing what those are can make a
Right.
difference. So
Yeah.
that's like success by design is like permission to do all the things. Dream, change your mind, pivot, do whatever you want to do your way. That's the big piece. The North Star compass piece is this 3 pieces of the values and strengths and desires. And continue, like just repeat, repeat, repeat. Try something out. Don't let fear get in the way of you making a decision that could potentially be the best you've ever made in your life. Let yourself play and explore. Let fear take a bit of the passenger seat instead of the driver's seat and take some messy action, take a couple risks and see how it goes. Like that's the
Yeah.
only way we learn. Like we said
Yeah.
earlier, you're not going
Risk.
to be a 10-year authority in veterinary medicine if you don't have the 10 years in veterinary medicine. It's going to take time. Let it be a journey and not this instant gratification, like dopamine hit that you think it's going to be, because you'll be disappointed.
Right. You'll be disappointed every day. And I think what you're saying in a lot of ways is just failing, like being okay to fail. And then when you do fail, learning from that and then doing it again and doing it again. Because everything you throw at the wall isn't going to stick.
No, it's not. But it's funny because as you even say that word, like I don't even have that in my vocabulary. Like it's just not, it's failure is just not a thing.
It's just a try and then
I
try
try
again.
and learn.
Yeah. Try and
Go
learn.
for it, go all in and learn, go all in and learn, go all in and learn. Because it really is every time you go all in and the results don't reflect what you hoped it would be, the next question needs to be, what happened there? What do I attribute these results to? What do I think is going on? What's my hypothesis about this effort that I put in with these results that I got out? What's the missing piece here? And then we learn, oh, next time I'm doing it this way. Did
Right.
I really go all in or did I say I was going all in, but I pulled the plug and I didn't do the things? And so there's
Like
this, not
chicken
that,
out.
that's right. Like it's very easy to get intimidated or be like, it's not working. Let me pull the plug before I feel negative feelings. No one wants to feel negative emotions. So we try
Right.
to avoid that at all costs. But failure is not a word in my mind. It's just not a word in my world, in my mind. It's like you go all out and you learn, and then you go all out again and you learn, and then you just keep going. And then it works. Like it will work. It will work. But
Yeah.
you need
Because
to
it's
stay
not
on
an
the path.
option. Failure isn't an option. And I think in business and in a lot of our lives, we think that if we do fail or we do have a bump in the road that we can like stop. But there's so many things in life that are just going to happen to you that you can't really stop. Like if you have 3 kids and something happens that you didn't anticipate or you made a decision that didn't go well, you're not just going to quit. Like that's what disturbs me about veterinary medicine, is because a lot of times vets think, well, if I have a problem, or I have an issue, or a client complained, or I got a board complaint, that I'm just going to do another job. This job isn't for me. Like, that's what they think. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not the way it is. Like, that may not necessarily be true. That's just your brain telling you didn't like what just happened. But if it was you raising your kids, or you dealing with your husband and you had a bump, you're not just going to like, well, I'm getting divorced then, or I'm putting these kids up for adoption, or I'm getting rid of this dog, like, or whatever it is when something bad happens. And I think that's what I fight against a lot, is people thinking that the job is the problem, rather than the way I'm thinking about it and the way I'm approaching it might be my problem. Does that make sense?
It does make
Like,
sense.
I'm all for changing it up and doing something different. But if you think that just moving from this job to the next job, or quitting and doing something easier, is going to make your life happy, that's not necessarily true.
It's not necessarily true. But like you said, most people don't want to feel these negative feelings. You don't want to feel the discomfort of growing pains. You don't want to feel the discomfort of learning something you didn't know. You don't want to feel, unless you have a love of learning as a top strength, which I imagine you do.
Some of
So
us do. Yeah, I do. Because
yeah.
I like to know everything, even though, sometimes I don't go all in, because then I get distracted with the other thing, right?
Well, so that's the thing. Not everyone has the strength of a love of learning, and might not see these moments as opportunities. They see them as burdens. They see them
Right.
as, I don't want to put up with this, or I shouldn't have to deal with this, or this isn't what I'm here for. And
Right.
so it becomes a very short-sighted experience. It's not going to be an experience where there's transformation, or there's an evolution, or there's an up level, or moments to be a better version of ourselves. When people approach life that way, most things become very short-lived and short-sighted, and the natural consequence of that is also, it's not very fulfilling to do life over and over again that way. It's way more fulfilling to be able to go all in on something that excites you, to learn where to close the gaps and what to learn, and how to create a real, connection with wisdom and experience in this world, in this lane that you're in, and to feel accomplished in that, and to feel the meaning that's attached to that, and to feel the positive emotions that you can have in that world, and to feel the engagement of losing track of time, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I've been with this dog for hours and I just love it and it's so good.
Right.
And
Yeah.
when we realize that this is really about this truly never ending evolution, this truly never ending cycle of evolving into our next iterations over next iterations, they can be in the same career, in the same office, in the same, doesn't have to be you're changing things up all the time, but it's more the commitment to the journey of
Right.
self-discovery
Mhm.
and of self-awareness, of personal power, of emotional intelligence, that's actually going to allow you to get the most out of your experiences, instead of looking at them as these like stop start, all or nothing, I'm out of here kind of thing.
Right, right. Yeah, I love that. And that's why I love this so much. I love being a coach. I love talking to other coaches, people, and I love entrepreneurs too. I have that kind of entrepreneurial spirit. So I get all of that, but I love what you're saying. So is there anything else that we need to say before we start to wrap this up?
Get out there and start doing the things you heard today in this podcast episode. Like, don't let this be another podcast episode that you're like, that was cool, that was interesting, that was
Yeah.
fun.
Like,
Like,
actually go do something, right?
do something. Like, it's, there
Yeah.
is a thought, a feeling, an idea, a dream. If there is something ignited in you, please go, after you end this episode, and go do something that reflects what you just felt or thought. Like, let it be, let these ideas, you know how they'll say, people will say, get the girls trip out of the group chat and get actually out there and do the
Yeah, and
girls,
actually go take the trip,
go
right?
take the trip. Or they'll say, get your pictures out of your iPhone and get an album going, so you can actually re-experience them and have them
Right.
real, tangible in your life.
Mhm.
The same is true for this work. It's, you have an idea, or you get excited, or you hear a thing a certain way, it clicks for you, it really lands. Don't let it end there. Like, see it through to that action stage. Let it be something that's a seed truly planted, not just something you're observing, but something you're actually becoming as a result of what you're hearing.
I love that. Say that again,
I
because I
can't.
love it so
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
You
I
can't?
don't know what I said.
You said just do it. Just go do something, right?
I
That's
just said be a
basically
Nike commercial and just do it. Well,
just go do something. Get off
just
your butt and do
yes,
something, right?
take it out of your head, take it out of the feels and into action. Go
I
do the
love it.
thing that reflects the way you felt ignited or inspired in this episode. Just bring it to life. Just
Yeah,
bring it
without
to life.
judgment. Like don't let your brain stop you. Because it'll try. As soon as you think about doing it, your brain's going to be like, but. You have to get over that and just do it, right?
You have to accept that that's what's going to happen. That's non-negotiable. The buts are not the reasons not to do it. It's just
Yeah.
your brain trying to protect you. It's not a reason to stop. It's actually a reason to put your foot on the gas and go because it means you're onto something good.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Oh, I love your energy. I love all this happiness talk. This is great. I'm probably going to want to have you back on the podcast again if you're willing, because this is stuff I love to hear over and over again. Every time I hear it, I get more excited. So
Yay.
tell everyone where they can find you if they want to learn more, or if they want to access your tools, or if they want to ask
Yes.
you some questions. Where can they
Yeah,
find
come
you?
say hi. Ask me questions. Come say hi. Tell me your story. I hang out the most on Instagram at Dr. Wendy O'Connor is my handle
Okay.
there. It's my handle everywhere. So you'll find me on Facebook or LinkedIn or anywhere, but I hang out the most on Instagram. So come in the DMs, say hi, let me know how you're doing. If there's, of course, anything I can support you with, I'd be honored to. But it's also, I create a feed on Instagram that feels to me like the empowerment, the permission, the success, like it feels like that all wrapped in one. So if you're looking for just to hook into, and I'm somebody who loves to hook into the inspiration, the activation, like who's
Yes.
doing it,
Because the
who's
more
doing
you
it,
the more you feed it, the more it sticks, right?
right? And the more you remind yourself of what's possible. So if you're
Right.
even just looking to do that, it's like come over, say hi, follow me.
I love that. Well, it's been super fun to get to know you, and I love your energy, and I love everything about what you're doing. So I wish you a lot of success, and I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and talking to us.
Thank you for having me. This was really fun.
So this is Dr. Wendy O'Connor. So look her up, and I'll try to have her back again. If you enjoyed it, let me know. And have a beautiful week, everyone. Bye. Bye, Wendy.